Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work.
Let the conversation begin. This is Let's Talk with your host, Carl Lee.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Lee with Let's Talk, and I have my host, Hollis Lewis, with me today.
Hello.
And it's going to be just me and him. We're gonna touch on a couple of different topics, and hopefully all of them, but perhaps maybe only, one of them may catch your attention and hold you and make you at least have a thought process in what we're talking about. And the first conversation, Hollis, I want to throw at you is, I think everybody has heard about the shooting that was in Dunbar, down by Shawnee Park. Mm-hmm. And to me, one of the interesting components about that was it's something that I never really thought about. Okay. I never really thought that something like that, and it wasn't at Shawnee Park, but
I think we need to make that clear. It wasn't at Shawnee Park. It was near. The shooting was very close.
It was actually what we know as going into the bottom
or West Dunbar.
And but you could hear it. It was close enough that you could hear the shots. And the good news is they do, as far as my knowledge, I think they do have the folks who were involved with it.
Allegedly,
yes. Yeah. But I can't. To me, I can't fathom like myself being in the park, and let's say even with my son or my grandson, and hearing that and trying to figure out now what to do.
Yeah.
We see this on television and we hear about it. But man, there were a lot of people that were in the park, that was on the fields and all of that. The panic that had to have happened.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine.
Yeah, I think it's very unfortunate that happened. I think that, and again, we're saying that, it wasn't necessarily at Shawnee Park. It was in close proximity. It's across the street there. But, either way, bullets can ring out and, anything could have happened, if shots were fired in that direction because of the proximity and the number of people that are at Shawnee on any one of those given travel sports Sundays. I think, when we it's one of those things in which, West Dunbar is a historic community, and we want to make sure that, our folks understand sort of what's happening in the Shawnee and what's the consequences of things like this. That's because a lot of people, that just live in Dunbar, citizens, taxpayers, they had nothing to do with this. They'll be demonized, or at least the community they're from will be demonized because of things like this. And I hope that, because I know the county, I believe they're going to have some strategic planning about not only preventing things like this, but also having various escape routes and different things of that nature, emergency planning for if an incident were to arise like this at the actual park. So I hope that community, West Dunbar, can be a part of those talks, and we can sort of remedy the situation without demonizing the whole community.
And I get your point too of the demonizing of it, and to me, and again, I'll start by saying I was a golfer at Shawnee Park when it was a golf course, so I was absolutely thinking no way this should happen. They need to leave it a golf course. Da 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 da. But legitimately now, when you see it, you can't help but say, man, this is a good thing, and this is one of those kind of good things, great things that you don't want any of that kind of stigma hanging around you when someone's calling you and saying, "Hey, we'd like to book this for a tournament here or there."
100%.
You don't want that.
And like, this is going to be, in addition to the Shawnee Sports Complex, once the sports complex is built downtown in our formerly Town Center Mall area, these are economic gold mines. These are economic drivers that are going to be here for generations. So I think that, those things have to be protected. And we can't be naive about that. But I would also like to see, again, the people in the community of West Dunbar be able to take advantage of some of those economic drivers. And hopefully those things can supersede any other mindsets that are around there. And people will kind of know better not to, do certain things in that area.
Yes. And that was going to be my question. Like when you say, step in and try to say something to kind of keep or prevent these types of things happening. Yeah. Is that a community meeting? Is that like, hey, somebody sitting a group of folks down and saying, look, we don't want these types of things, and we don't need these types of things happening. We need to be focused. And if you hear about something, you need to say something about it, before it happens or anything. And again, we don't know. I don't know what initiated the shooting.
Yeah, I don't know what transpired.
I don't know what
any
happened.
Of the details. Again, that's why I want to be very careful not to demonize that community.
Yeah, I don't even see it.
If you did it, then you got to pay the consequences. But far as the community, what I want to see is the community come together and maybe figure out a way in which they can benefit off of Shawnee as well, and it'd be a community-driven initiative, and them not forced to comply to anything that they're not ready to do.
Right, and again, to your point about not trying to demonize the community, because to me, I personally have never felt like I used to go to church, in that community.
Ferguson, okay.
Yes. And it never dawned on me. I never looked at it that way, and then of course I worked at Shawnee. I ran Shawnee Park for 3 or 4 years, and the community, they had the basketball, they had, it's always been, and again, I'm gonna give shout out to Sean Forte Cuddy, because he's always been overly active into the community, trying to do something.
Yeah. And
I think he sits on top of that as a person who's really trying to make this community and the community, its youth, inspire them to become and be something.
Yeah.
100%. and I think that's the downfall of the shooting. That's the other end of the shooting.
Because it overshadows it overshadows all the good things that are happening, right?
Yes.
And I think that's one of them. And I'm glad you said that, because I think that's my overall point. Something did happen. It's one of those things in which you can't let it slide. It's affecting business, right? And those things are fair points, but we can't let just that single incident overshadow a lot of good that's happening in that community. And like I said from the beginning, I just want, and not just to put it on one person, but just the community as a whole has to come together. And it's not just for West Dunbar, it's for any community, right?
There should be communities rallying around.
Yeah, just rallying around and just trying to figure out a path to, not only provide a safe environment for people in that community, but also trying to figure out a way to, to safely and partner and be beneficial with, the economic force that is Shawnee Park. And I just want to, and I hope that when the county and officials from Shawnee Park, when they have these strategic meetings, that West Dunbar representatives of such can be invited into those spaces just to figure out how we can all work together in order to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again.
Well, and again, I think that you must include the community.
I mean, not necessarily. Things happen all the time, but the community ain't included.
And I understand that, but I'm making the case that I think you have to bring people from that community who love that community, because part of the role that you're going to play to me, is that you have to invest in this community.
I like that. Yeah, that's
you have to kind of like you're set up and you're structured there. You're making money there. There has to be a penny or two invested into the community so that they can feel like they're part of this.
Yeah, but and I agree with you 100% there. But I also think the onus is on the community too.
Yes,
to invest in themselves to take advantage of said opportunity. Because just like we talked about prior to the show, we were talking about taking advantages of opportunities that come your way, and this is a major opportunity, and you got to figure out a way. And again, I don't know that. I mean, that would just be for that community to decide. But you got to figure out a way to take advantage of kind of what's right there. However, that can be done. And again, and I think that one path is like you said, having a seat at the table, and then the other path is just huddling amongst yourself and figuring out that methodology. And like I said, just speaking of like sports and business, we had the cyclists. Olympic trials here in Charleston this past weekend, and some of those riders will go on to represent the U.S. In the Olympics in Paris. And I think that Charleston, Kanawha County, it's turning into like a sports hub for our sports tourism and business.
It amazes me when I found out that they were hosting, that Charleston was hosting that. My first thought was, why? How? How did that get set up? Now, with that being said, I'm a bike rider, and I just started getting my bike back out and rode yesterday, and try to ride as much as I can. I enjoy it, but I can't even imagine the speed, the technique, the thought process, the management of all of that. That's professional.
They were flying. and what in like I said, a lot of people were captivated by the speed. I was captivated about them going up them big hills and mountains on a bike. Just gliding up those steep hills. You're talking about gliding up Warts Avenue, South Hills, Greenbrier, on your way to the airport. Just going up those hills and just being able to have the fortitude to do that several times in a circuit. So, I mean,
what was the length of the?
I'm not sure the length. There were multiple routes. So like each day there were multiple routes on any given day, because you had depending on the distance. So you had some middle distance, some long distance. There was one loop where it was kind of just going around town, around downtown. Those were the short distance speeds guys. So just like in sprinting, you have your distance middle distance, speed. So. And I just think stuff like that is just awesome for the city, for the state, that we can, we just have the capacity to host stuff like that. And I know a lot of times on this show, we talk about that intersection of community, sports, and business. And I think we're seeing it at the highest level,
I think this particular event, whether you're a bike rider or not, I think shows up as West Virginia, as Charleston, downtown Charleston, hosting something of that magnitude that has that kind of relevance of the potential of being in the Olympics.
Yeah.
And
it's big stuff, man.
Yeah, and you're qualifying here.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe part of the qualifying is here.
Maybe part of
part of it is here. That's special.
Yeah, and just think of like
because we've never in my lifetime, I don't remember, and blame some of this maybe on my brain, but I don't remember any event specifically that could be attached to.
That's a good point.
Qualifying for an Olympic Games.
Well, I will say a couple years ago they had the Junior Olympic boxing here.
Okay,
so,
yes, I do. I do remember that.
That was here for about 2 or 3 years.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah. But other than that, I'm not really sure of any other.
No track and field.
No track and field. I would doubt that. I don't know if we had the facilities for that
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it's really big, and it's like I said, I just think it speaks volumes. Shout out to Mayor Goodwin, her administration, and just every Ben Salango, just everybody who thinks in that manner, because I think that, sitting at a legislative seat level, when we talk about, bringing improving the quality of life, when you talk about bringing business, when you talk about just the general upgrade of how people view the city and the state, those are pieces that we can bring in to show people that we have the capacity to do this. I know we've hosted the basketball tournament,
right,
that popular event in the summer, which I think is going to come back here. It's been here and Wheeling. We've hosted Strongman, the Junior Olympics. Those are things, and you know what I'm saying? And I guess that's just part of, like, we beat this subject to death when we talk about parents and transfer and blah, blah, blah. But I think that's just part of sort of the sports mentality now, because, and we'll talk about a pretty amazing case here in a minute. But when we talk about that intersection of sports and business, sports at all levels is really becoming business. And
to that point, when you start talking about youth sports, you're talking about fielding a team of young kids, helmets, shoulder pads, pants, practice gear, all of that, travel, all of that requires. That's in itself is a business.
Yeah, that's true.
I know we treat it as a business as part of the city of South Charleston. It's in our city budget to fund youth sports. Now, everybody hasn't done that. Everybody hasn't gone that far. But even for the coaches who volunteer, they're out there, knocking on doors, trying to find money. But they find that money every year.
So let me ask you this. Like I said, and in addition, I forgot to mention that they're having a major college basketball event at the Greenbrier, and they had the training camps here. They had the 49ers, and I believe the Commanders, and I want to say the Browns here.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been 2 or 3. Yeah,
it's been 2 or 3, and the Saints were here. That's what it was. The Saints were here. So just in the Valley, what sport event would you like to see? I got mine. Which one would you like to see? I got 2.
Ooh.
And what could you see working?
Without any, we're not assuming that we are assuming that the facility is available for it.
Well, we're saying, but the facilities that we got now.
Ooh,
and
you hurt me in that one.
What we have now, just in the Valley, anywhere in the Valley, what could you see possibly working? A major sporting event.
See, I think a professional basketball game being played here.
That's what mine was.
Yeah, because I think that's the only one that we could potentially.
Because you could have it at the Civic Center.
Yes.
And I could see a preseason game.
Yes.
And I'm saying, like,
wouldn't be no playoffs.
Just a preseason game, an exhibition.
Yeah.
I could see maybe the Cavs, and maybe we could get the Wizards or the Hornets. I'm just thinking somebody in close proximity.
See, I could see
we could do something like that.
When we talk about it that way.
Yeah.
I could see a preseason game, or what we used to call a scrimmage.
Yeah.
Cleveland and Cincinnati. Playing maybe at Marshall Stadium, maybe at WVU. You know what I'm saying? Like, just a scrimmage.
You talking about just a preseason game?
Not even a preseason game. Sometimes what happens is you end up just scrimmaging a team in your...
Well, they kind of do that at the Greenbrier, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess... But I'd like it to be somewhere
close,
somewhere like right here in the Valley, because what I'd love for kids to see who play football is just even in a practice, even in just a scrimmage, how these guys play and how casual it is to have that talent. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like these guys are playing. And me and you could be laughing, going back to your huddle, I'm going back to mine. We could be laughing, we done said something funny, and then walk right back up to the line of scrimmage and then play at the highest level.
Yeah, see, I would like to see, and actually that's a good idea. That would be something to see, like if you could possibly, even like if there was a situation where you could have maybe 2 teams at the Greenbrier and they could have a scrimmage at WVU or Marshall. That I think that would be awesome. I would like to see that. I would like to see. I think we could do an exhibition basketball game, NBA and WNBA.
Yes,
I think we could do both, and I would like to see maybe a professional baseball game as well at the Power Park, scrimmage. Exhibition. I think we could get possibly the Reds and the Pirates.
That would be the easiest one.
I think the Reds and the Pirates.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Playing at Power Park or Dirty Bird Park, whichever one it is now. So I would like to see those events. I could see maybe some maybe a professional boxing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think those sort of things, I think it's possible that could work and it's feasible. And I think we would have the facilities to carry it.
See, and I think what people think about is but there's going to be, 200,000 people at the game, right? Okay, but it's like anything else. If you sell out, you sell out.
Yeah.
If you miss it, you miss it.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that would change the dynamics of kids seeing that level of talent. Because I think you got to see it to really understand what it is and where you are and where you want to go.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I just think, like I said, I just think where we're going as far as sports tourism being, the city, the state being, the county being invested in the business of sports. I mean, I see it going higher and higher and higher. And I think that, I think we could scale to one of those events, particularly if we had other things. Because I think what they do a good job of pitting other things around it. Like when you talk about the cycling event that happened this past weekend, they had festivals downtown. So they had other stuff kind of around it to make sure that, people came out. So yeah, I think we could do something like that.
And when we fight over, not you and I, but where the state championships are going to be.
Yeah.
And I could see there being, some mumbling in where these types of events could be hosted, but the reason why that you don't have to really worry about that is it doesn't matter where those are.
People are going to go.
People are going to go.
Yeah,
you don't care because right now people are driving, flying to places to see their NBA team, their NFL team. They're doing that specifically just to get one game in a year.
Yeah.
Oh man, they're playing in DC. We're going to drive to DC and watch them play. So I don't think it bothers. It doesn't bother me of even really who the team would even be.
Yeah, I think that's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't think.
I think if you had an NFL, like you said, a scrimmage, a live practice, so to speak, you brought it to WV Marshall lately, possibly even the South Charleston maybe could host it. If you brought that somewhere, people are going to show up, I think. And
just to have the opportunity to watch them practice for a day.
Yeah. Because I think people show up at the Greenbrier.
Oh, yeah.
That's not necessarily the easiest place to get to, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I don't think there's a lack of people going.
Yeah.
That's 100%. For sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Follow us on Facebook at Let's Talk Carl Lee. Visit WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk for more.
Sponsorship opportunities are available. Contact Carl Lee at letstalk@promessage.com, Dale Cooper at dcooper@wvradio.com, or call 304-342-8131. Ask Carl a question or comment on current or previous episodes. Visit Let's Talk Carl Lee on Facebook. Like, rate, and subscribe from your podcast service to help more people find Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Now, back to the conversation.
All right, we're back from the break, and Hollis, I'm gonna try to smoothly transition, okay, into from the realization of trying to have a major sporting event here, and then looking now at the NBA and the small market teams that are now in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That are, usually it's a we all know the major teams being, in the playoffs, but now we have small markets.
Yeah.
that transition I'm making is to say that small towns, small cities, small states can produce.
Yeah, and I think it's because of, and again, we've talked a bunch of crap about cell phones, internet, and different things of that nature. But now superstars like a Greek Freak, like a Anthony Edwards, they don't necessarily have to, even like if you look at Steph Curry, Golden State, again, it's in California, but Oakland itself is not, the Bay Area is not necessarily the hugest market. No. It's not a LA, Chicago, Boston, Miami.
And before you go any further, but in those places, those teams identify the community.
Yeah, they identify that state. That's a good point.
That's what happens when it's a small town.
And I think now you as a superstar, you could do that. You can sort of live that up now because now you don't have to. I don't have to. If I'm a Greek Freak and I don't want to mess the brother's name up, or Anthony Edwards, I don't have to go to LA, Chicago, New York in order to monetize my superstar. Right? I can go. I could just stay in this town. I can stay exactly where I'm at. I can stay in Minnesota. And I could be the superstar, and I could be on every commercial. Patrick Mahomes is in Kansas City, right? Yeah. Not a big city, a small to medium city. He could stay there. He could be a superstar there. So I think, that is definitely played a major part in allowing us to have a little bit more diversity amongst who's good. Because I'm a Laker fan, but I don't want to see Lakers, Knicks, Laker, Boston every year. You know what I'm saying? I want to see the other teams.
The same thing. I feel the same way. I don't like the same teams winning over and over. Now, if I'm on that team, I'm probably happy. Sure. But to watch it, to even hear about it, I don't want the Celtics to win 6 championships in a row.
Yeah.
I don't want the 49ers to win 6 championships in a row.
Yeah.
Because to me, something's wrong with that whole picture.
Yeah, and I just love, like I said, we got Dallas, and again, and Dallas isn't necessarily a small city, but it's not a blue blood neither. It's it's not a Chicago, LA. It's not known necessarily, at least being this huge basketball. They have a couple rings, but they don't have, like I said, they not have the pedigree of an LA Laker or something to that effect. So just and I'll be really interested after the series and playoffs and everything is done to kind of look back at the numbers to see exactly how those panned out. Because I guess the hypothesis that I'm making is that, and I think maybe you might agree, is that those small communities, those small cities will maybe be more inclined to follow and watch everything and make sure that they're following every single thing, as opposed to maybe LA where you have more of the fair weather fan.
See, I think, and I agree, and I think what happens, the networks want the big guys in the game because now everybody's so used to hearing the big names, the Lakers, that type of thing. So they're so used to hearing that. All of a sudden now, it's my team in my hometown, or just a state over that I've loved my entire life, and all of a sudden they're in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and they're going to be playing games 5 blocks away from where I live.
Yeah.
I'm going to one of those games.
Yeah, you're going to try anyway.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, and people travel anyway. They travel with their team, and I've seen 1,000 people wearing a Viking something in just everywhere walking around, and I'm like, you a Viking fan? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so people... There are fans of teams, no matter how big, how small the market is, that are dying to go to a game.
Yeah, man. And like I said, I just think, sort of connected to conversations when we talk about these small cities, these towns, these medium-sized cities, and what they're able to accomplish and the support that they can give a team. I mean, again, it maybe not in the near future, but I think it sets a town, a city up like Charleston, like West Virginia maybe as a whole, the outside chance of maybe maybe it's a team that we could host. So maybe it's, we can have those events. Or maybe, in the distant future, there is a possibility that we could have a professional team at, I'm not saying NBA, NFL, but at some level that's going to compete nationally. Because we see that if you have an ownership group that's vested and committed to winning, committed to doing a good job, making the right picks, the fans are going to follow.
There's no question.
They're going to come.
There is no question. And what's Fargo, North Dakota? I'm going there. I'm actually having a camp in Fargo, and from Minnesota, there's a Viking fan club that is in Fargo. So Fargo, North Dakota doesn't necessarily have, you get to pick your team because you don't have a team.
Yeah.
And for whatever the reason is, the Vikings have been that team that they have chosen.
Yeah. It's close, though.
Yeah, it's close. Oh,
yeah.
It's definitely close. But now, alumni players have tapped into Fargo. There's a guy by name Buddy Becker who does events there specifically because that's a community who loves the Vikings but rarely get to see.
All right, let me ask you something.
Okay.
Speaking of that's actually a good point that you just made. I didn't think about this till now. When we talk about, because I know you mentioned this before, when you talk about NFL, NBA, MLB, do you think maybe that those organizations and teams within that league ought to use and possibly even pay their former players to sort of be ambassadors for the team? And kind of, because these, y'all could work 24 hours. Y'all don't have a season no more. Do you think that's something that they need to put more effort into, particularly like a league like the WNBA?
Yes, and I think some do, but they don't call it that.
Okay.
And I thought it was interesting because we had a meeting, a Viking former player meeting to talk about things we need, things we want, blah 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 blah, and the lady who was running it, who I thought was running it, Tracy McDonald, who is she's the lady that's over the alumni affairs department. You're thinking that she's going to actually run the meeting.
Yeah.
Well, the person who ran the meeting was John Randall, which was interesting but made sense to me.
Yeah.
Because she's going to talk. Everybody's going to listen. Everybody loves her. She's great for everybody, trying to get people signings and stuff, all that kind of stuff. She's great for it.
So they do this kind of informally.
I think it's done informally because again, Johnny was just there. He was sitting beside her, but I just figured he got there, sit down beside her, and everybody else sit around the table. But he literally opened the meeting and closed the meeting.
Yeah.
So, and everybody looks to him, and I'm talking about there's Carl Eller was there. I mean, there was some of those guys back in the day, great players.
Is he like a president of the organization, or
I don't even.
Vice
It wasn't
president?
really. It really wasn't. It was what we call the legends.
Okay.
I think everybody calls the former players like legends. I think that's the term that we get.
Yeah.
And so I think he is head of the legends community.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so
For the Vikings.
for the Vikings. And to me, it is, to your point, is he's kind of the spokesperson for the Vikings to us.
Yeah, because the reason I say this is like, not only did I, you sparked it when you were talking about it, but it draws me back to a conversation that we had previously about, kind of the trouble that, when we talk about youth football, and again, I don't want to go down that road, but when we talk about that and we have the lack of participation, and we talked about, which you made an excellent point, that soccer is actually maybe the biggest threat to football than even injuries, right?
Yeah.
So would this be something, implementing a program like that or a strategy within the various organizations and maybe league-wide, particularly in the NFL, that they need to have the legends actually go to various communities around the country, maybe get a full-time paid job for it, and actually, be ambassadors of the game?
See, one of my dreams is to get guys like Carl Eller, former legends from that era, way back. That gets your dad. That gets your granddads. And then bring them into to Charleston, West Virginia. Mm-hmm. Bring them into South Charleston, West Virginia. Bring them into the state of West Virginia, and let them sit and talk about and sign autographs. But for the most part, have conversation, talk about their life, what it was, what the sport was at that point in time. I think that is what we need. I think like states that don't have teams, and don't have access to players, former players, forget players, the current players, they're harder to get anyway.
Yeah, they got stuff going.
Yeah, they got stuff going. But former players that you remember, there's going to be adult men that remember me playing. Yeah. No kids are going to remember me playing. Dads are going to remember somebody else. As
guys retiring every day.
Yes,
so
guys retiring all the time.
You could get the gambit of age groups.
But
and different
if
things
you don't start that, what I'm saying? Like if you don't start that, it's going to be hard to get a guy who's making $100 million to come to Charleston, West Virginia, just to sit and chit chat with somebody unless he's a really good dude.
But to my point, though, do you think that's something that the NFL needs to put a bigger emphasis on?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. I think that ambassador thing.
Could really, like you said, save the game.
I think so. And again, let's say if I'm the only Viking player on this side of the East Coast, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm the ambassador of this area. So I'm trying to reach out to every player possible, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a Viking, really.
Yeah, just a
former player, just an alumni,
Mm-hmm.
And then, but alumni ought to come together and go to each other's hometown.
That would be tight.
Everybody's great in their hometown.
Yeah.
Or great or hated. But if you get some guys to come with you, there's going to be somebody in that group that you're going to like.
What I'm saying? Somebody you're going to know. That's actually a good point.
That's what I think is really important.
Because I think WVU, again, I don't know if it's a concerted effort by WVU as an athletic department or school, but I think they do a good job of always promoting their, former players, their alumni, their legends. You'll see these guys all over the state of West Virginia. I know Darius Stills, he's doing a camp, or maybe he already did it in McDowell County. You know what I'm saying? So they'll be all over the state. And I always thought, like, well, it would be cool to, like, because I know maybe if you're in a state that doesn't necessarily have a football team or one in close proximity, it may be a good idea for that organization team. Hey, we're going to send a bunch of guys here every year, and we're going to build a fan base up there. You know what I mean?
I think colleges that I think West Virginia and Marshall, UC State, anybody who's had any player to grace a roster. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be great. He just graced a roster. We should be celebrating that.
Yeah.
That should be some celebration. That should be somebody getting those guys together and bringing them all back for something.
Yeah.
I just think that it's important for our youth, because my grandson, probably the only reason that he knows that I played football is because he's my grandson.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right.
Yeah, well, I know we talked about different things of that nature before, and I think this would be maybe a pathway to it. You know what I mean? Just to get those guys on like a circuit, if you will.
All right, so we're going to probably close out the show here on this particular subject. Mm-hmm. NIL. Everybody already knows kind of how I feel about it, so I don't necessarily even have to go and waste any time to even to go into what I think about it. But apparently, Florida, in a situation that the coach pulls the NIL money that was promised to an athlete, specifically because, I shouldn't say specifically, but I'll say, my assumption is because he isn't turning out to be necessarily what they wanted. He's not going to be starting.
Yeah.
And so
he transferred too.
And he transferred and he was to get $14 million.
Wow.
Okay, so he's getting $14 million, supposedly getting $14 million, and then all of a sudden you tell me that I'm not getting it.
Based off
of performance. Now,
wow.
The question becomes, if you give me a guaranteed contract, of $14 million, and the only catch I have is I got to make the roster. I make the roster, you owe me $14 million.
You owe me $14 million.
Okay.
And again, I'm for NIL, but I think that, again, cases like this.
Yeah, because he's suing. He's suing Florida.
And the thing is, this may not be the last time we see lawsuits. We've seen similar situations where guys were given, I ain't gonna say not similar, but we've seen situations where guys were given money and charged a whole bunch of interest and points and different things of that nature. Now we're seeing a situation in which, you know, the athlete is alleging fraud. It's a federal case. And not only is he alleging fraud amongst the coach, but also a booster.
Yep.
So again, I think this is where a lot of these schools and a lot of these coaches are going to get in trouble, particularly when you're handing out millions upon millions of dollars for somebody who doesn't really have necessarily a track record, you know, at this level. And I think that this is going to be a case where the NCAA, the schools, the president are going to have to set up and create some boundaries with this.
Well, and here think about this. I give you a scholarship. I recruit you out of high school. I give you a full scholarship.
Yeah.
All right. You come in and you don't live up to that full scholarship. I don't have the ability to take that scholarship. You have to do something.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm projecting that you are this great guy.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm giving you this full scholarship. So that mistake is basically, I'm gonna say it's on me.
Yeah.
Right? But I see the NIL money as and again, this is just me looking at it. It's production.
Is it?
I think it is. I think my expectation. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
See, I'm not putting $14 million on a kid who I don't think is going to beat you out.
See, I don't know. To me, it's just these are almost like signing bonuses to me. I don't know within the NIL deal that is based off, well, if you don't do X, Y, Z. I mean, I'm sure there's parameters like if you don't stay in school, da. But as long as you're playing football, you're on the team. This is kind of what we signed you to. You know?
I totally agree if that is the contract.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if they've gone into the depths of that. Because I don't know if they were aware of this happening. Because again, you talking about suing the school, suing the coach.
Because I think maybe the issue just the amount. I guess that's the surprising thing to me. Like you're promising. I mean, what coach to me in a right mind is promising an 18-year-old kid, because we've seen this. We've seen recruiting classes where you got 2 and 3 quarterbacks, 5-star, you was all that in high school, and it doesn't necessarily translate. That things happen, right? So why, as a coach, to me, are you putting $14 million on the line?
Because I don't think
that's insane.
Because here's the thing. I'm not offering you. I'm looking at your film. I've talked to you. I've sized you up. I've worked you out, and I'm thinking, yes. He's worth it.
$14 million?
I'm just saying.
$2 million, $1 million, coach.
$2 million, $1 million, whatever it is. I'm just saying. My point is this. I worked you out, I saw it, and I bought it. So I trust myself, so I'm putting that money on you. You come to camp, you ain't really worked out, you ain't done a whole lot of anything, and you show up in camp, now I want to say, I can't give that to you. You already gave it to me. I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking that you've already given that to me because unless there's a clause in the contract that says you have to start. And I don't think you sue if there's a contract that comes with the NIL money.
Yeah.
That NIL has to specifically say what I'm expecting from you. So if I'm expecting you to start, you ain't got a level to sue. But now that's which again.
But I don't know if that's how NILs are structured. But then again,
I don't think so
here's
either.
the thing, though. We don't know because there's no federal guidelines.
Nope.
There's no NCAA guidelines.
Nope.
Each school, each state is kind of just doing what they want to do, and I think that's the problem.
Well, let me ask this: to the point you just made. Is it the state or is it just the school?
It could be the state or the school. So, for example, in West Virginia, WVU kind of set the parameters and the guidelines from which all schools in West Virginia follow in regards to NIL. I think a state like Virginia, they have a statute that deals with the NIL. Florida, California. So it goes from state to state, and that's sort of the problem. Because, again, I'm not mad that the coach don't want the player no more. I'm not mad that it didn't work out. But what I'm saying, I'm not even mad that the school or the coach want the money back. What I'm saying is that this ain't like $10,000, $50,000. We're talking $14 million. That's life-changing money, coach.
Yes,
and I'm saying
for you and your family.
And if I'm the school president, maybe the AD was in on it, I don't know. But particularly if I'm in administration and I don't necessarily have any, what in the heck are you doing paying an 18-year-old? And we know that the transition from high school to college is a huge jump. It's a huge jump, right? Why are you paying somebody $14 million
a huge jump
at a quarterback position?
Huge jump in Florida.
And Florida. So you're playing in the SEC. You're playing in probably the next level from the NFL. It's the closest thing to professional at the college ranks. So we're starting. I'm saying give them something. I'm saying maybe even a couple $100,000, but $14 million. Of course you're gonna get sued. And I just think that it's egregious that a coach would commit to such an amount.
And I guess my question to that is, you really have to look on your roster and check the quarterback situation to confirm that you really need a quarterback, because you can't bring one in for $14 million and again him not play.
But what I'm asking you, coach, is that your feelings about it aside, if you was a coach at a big time college program and this is what it is, and you just had to deal with it, are you prepared to pay a 17 or 18-year-old kid $14 million?
No.
That's what I'm saying.
No.
I'm looking at, why would it be such an enormous amount? I mean, again, I got to meet this kid's lawyer, father, or whoever who negotiated this deal.
He's making more than a majority
of NFL guys. Even if it's 14 over 4 years or 3 years.
Yes.
That's still a great amount of money to pay somebody who's making a big transition and jump. And this kid might be and from what I understand, he got his release from Florida. He signed with Arizona State. And this kid may be great. And I'm not saying he's not, but I'm just saying I think that we have to be common sense about this, right? We got to be.
So he signed so he signed at Arizona.
Yeah, he got his release from Florida, and then his father went to Arizona, so that's what he signed with.
Okay, so are they off? Does it say anything?
No, it doesn't say far as I'm sure they're kicking in something, but I don't know if it's close to,
Well, the suit to me, if he going somewhere else, the suit to me is a mute. Like, you kill that. You can't have that and go. You can't sue me for $14 million, probably more. And you've already gone and signed somewhere else.
Well, you can, because again, we're saying that's different. It's like if I get unjustly terminated from one company, I go to the next company making more money, I still can have a lawsuit against that company. And check what I'm saying though. The kid would receive $1 million on signing day. What are we doing? I ain't pocket watching. I ain't hating on nobody. I'm saying the kid. all these guys, if you're playing for Alabama, Florida State, WVU, whatever, you deserve yours, right? But I'm saying as a coach, as an alumni, as a school, that doesn't make sense, because we all know that how you play in high school is not necessarily indicative of how it's going to go in college. At all. And we know that, we just seen it too many times. Unless you're talking about maybe a left tackle, maybe a running back, which maybe are maybe smoother transitions. I ain't saying easier, but as a quarterback, and you ain't seen that speed and that level and the complexities of what offenses are and defenses are now, and I'm gonna give you $1 million on signing day, bro. You still in high school.
And again, we can't call it collegiate ball.
Not at that level.
If let's just say it was $14 million for 4 years. If I made $14 million in 4 years, bruh, why am I gonna go play pro?
And why am I going to class?
Yeah, why? Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's part of the deal.
That's probably part of the deal. But you know what I'm saying? Like, at that point, life is good.
That's what I'm trying to say. And I think the lawsuit really stems not necessarily from them. I mean, it stems from them cutting the money. But check this out. He had a scholarship offered to Miami Hurricanes, and they were going to pay him $9.5 million in NIL money, and he turned down that to go to Florida, and then Florida pulls the NIL money, so now he left with nothing. Now he's going to the school, and I don't think that these numbers, Arizona State probably ain't paying these numbers, although they're probably giving him something. And I'm just saying, at some point, again, I understand every school wants to win, but I'm saying that if you're paying these exorbitant amount, you're messing up the game for everybody. And this is going to be results where now you're going to be tied up in litigation, and it's just going to be unaffordable after a while.
How am I a backup quarterback with no NIL money, and he's leaving because they changed his $14 million, or they're not giving him $14 million, or whatever the case, whatever the argument is, and I wasn't getting anything? How many players on that team is not getting anything?
Or you're the starter now.
Yes.
Think about that now. Yes. And this is where it gets bad.
I see where you're going.
So now I'm the guy that's got a scholarship offer. Maybe I get a couple little grand. I take care of something. I ain't really getting nothing compared to what he getting. I done played, worked hard, beat him out for the position. Now, and this is what I'm saying. Now, what's my negotiating starting point now? I done beat your guy that you was paying $14 million. So I'm starting now.
We starting at $14 million.
We starting at $14 million.
Your offer ought to be $14 million.
We starting at $14 million.
And I'm going to say, I think I need a little bit more.
So that's what I'm saying. I think they, biting their nose and spike their face. You can't start this. And again, I believe in guys ought to get some money. I'm for that. But I'm saying at these exorbitant amounts, you're going to make the game where it's just not obtainable. You're going to be tied up in guys. What's guys going to hold out now? Guys going to sue you now? What's going to happen now?
So when we talked earlier today about talking about what we're going to talk about on the show, do you now see NIL as a problem? Is this the beginning of the end of just uncontrollable throwing money at kids?
This has to be the beginning and the end. It's the beginning of, to me, what should be NCAA regulations, federal regulations, and the end of the Wild Wild West. Because to me, I'm blaming Florida, your AD, your coaches, and your and the boosters for this, because you can't let this get too much. This can't happen.
No.
You know what I'm saying? I believe in having an equitable split, because now you got video games, you got a Pearl, you got I don't even like the coaches. If the coaches are getting shoe deal money, and that ought to they ought to have a pot for the players in that too. I just believe in an equitable split.
Do you think there should be a max to the 5-star guy, there's a max. 4-star guy, there's a max. 3-star guy, there's
I wouldn't necessarily name it, do that, because who's ranking them? Like, what are these bodies that we could trust to actually rank guys? And I think that could create corruption.
Well,
what I'm saying is that it ought to be a starting point when you freshman, and it can go up. It could go up. So
like
it
that
incentivizes you, number one, to stay in college, because the longer you stay there, the more money you're going to make. And if you make the playoffs, you make a bowl game, that's a bump. You get defensive player, offensive player, your Heisman, that's a bump. You know what I'm saying? So I think it ought to be incentive based with a minimum that
which
you
is
make.
more like what they do in the league.
Yeah,
you get this amount of money and you got these incentives.
Yeah. So a freshman, you coming in at this amount, we could either pay you this or zero. Sophomores this or zero. Juniors this is seniors this or zero. So you're gonna make some money, and then also I think it ought to be outside of what the school is going to pay you, because that's what's happening. The schools are paying these kids. Then, like I said, if you can get a Powerade commercial, Gatorade commercial, then that's on you.
Right.
Long as it doesn't interfere with school and you're playing and it's ethical.
I like it. I like everything that you said, especially like as a freshman, this is your max. Sophomore, junior, senior. I like that because I think that's structure.
Yeah.
But it can't. To me, I just don't see it being into a level to where it is beyond professional sports. I just don't think it should be that high.
That's what I'm saying. And I don't necessarily. I mean, I have a problem.
I don't know if you can fix that now, though.
I think you can. I think it can be rolled back, but I think when you do stuff like what Florida did, they just hurt the game to me in general. Because now what happens is that, like I said, if nothing else, if I'm the starting quarterback of Florida, I'm saying I need those $14 million. That's what you gave old buddy. And particularly if I'm winning, think about this. What I'm saying is that now guys are not only going to be transferring for maybe a better situation, or they want to be closer to home, or they don't really like the coaching staff. They're going to be transferring for better deals. Because if I'm the Florida quarterback, let's say the Florida quarterback, whoever's starting this year, whoever he is, maybe he's making 30, 40, whatever he's making. And I'm saying he's winning games and he gets them to the playoffs, or he wins a championship. Now, you don't think he's thinking about renegotiating, or pops or uncle or somebody? And now, if you don't want to renegotiate with me, I'm gone. I'm going to somebody. I done proven I won.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You see the problem that it creates?
I do. I've just never really liked it.
Yeah.
But I do believe that players ought to get paid. I just don't think that it should be just randomly like what you do in the league. Like, you pay your superstar this, and then all of a sudden you now become the superstars that. I think it should be a locked-in amount as you get to each level.
I think it should be
and I like what you said, as a
stipend based on your classification, and then whatever money you make on the side, Powerades, you do that. Long as it doesn't interfere, and those deals got to be circulated through the school. So long as it doesn't interfere, you make your money on the side. But far as what the school gonna pay you, this is what it is, and it ought to be across the board. So that way, it creates some sort of equitable situation for everybody.
As we close out the show, I'm gonna say this, and you're gonna probably chuckle and have something to say after I say it. Mm-hmm. So if you have anything to do with the potential of high school NIL money, I think Hollis's idea and concept of structure by class with incentive, with everything else being incentive based, that is your safest way.
100%.
That is your safest way, because the more money the community has, the more likely they're going to be able to afford more players and the better players in their space. If everybody can pay the same flat rate for this particular guy at this particular level, and then have some incentives, I think that's the fairest way to do it. Because if you leave it wild west, It's gonna bite you.
And the guys are gonna be so competitive.
Absolutely.
Like we're gonna see the dogs. Like I said, when in the NFL, when guys weren't getting paid a whole bunch, Pro Bowl meant something because that was a bump in pay.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Those off-season awards, those meant something because that's a bump.
Pro Bowl when I was playing was a 10 and you win the game, $10,000.
And that meant something.
And that meant something.
Only 100, maybe 150. That 10,000 was some money.
It was meant to be for something. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I can do something with this.
100%. So I think if you can credit that sort of situation in college, and again, get a guy something, give them space and room where they can, those superstars can make that money outside. That's fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed the show, and we are out. We'll see you again soon.
The opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of WVRC Media, its management, employees, or sponsors. Follow us on Facebook at Let's Talk Carl Lee. Visit WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk for more.